Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for joining in today's webinar. I have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about today. I also have Saurabh, Nigam, and also have Arohi, who are our special guests today, who are going to talk about a few things that they have done. As I said, we all are learning here, so they have also tried to experiment around several things in recruitment, and they are here as a special guest here to talk about their experiences. So let's listen to what they have to say. And towards the end, we can have a Q&A and open discussion, as we call it in Cutshort. Towards the end, whatever questions you have, we can talk about it. We can even see if some of you would like to come online and we talk about it as well. So let's keep it informal and keep the interactions going. So before we begin, as I said, we have two special guests. So let's go to them first. Welcome Saurabh and welcome Arohi. Would you like to introduce yourself a bit?
Sure. Thanks, Nikunj. Thanks for having us. I'll go. So I'm Arohi. I head operations at Incubyte. So Incubyte is a software services organization. We're relatively small and relatively new. We're just about 2.5 years old, but we're scaling fast, and we've been associated with Cutshort for all of our 2.5 years of life, and Cutshort has helped us scale as well. Our USP is basically providing very, very high quality software, which means focusing on the more implicit aspects of software development, like the processes that we use, like the practices that we use, developing a really agile mindset, using mindsets like the software craftsmanship mindset, XP practices, etc., like that. Yes, so that's a little bit about me. I'm a chartered accountant by training, but I love working with people and I love operations.
Yes, actually, when Arohi is saying that she heads operations, she also means that she heads recruitment, which actually reports to operations. And she has had a lot of how big is the recruiting team at Incubyte?
3 people strong. We're 3 of us there.
Okay, and they're doing a lot of interesting work with this team. So we'll talk about that. Saurabh, I think a lot of people might already know you from your previous Kutshort webinar as well as the LinkedIn presence as well. So briefly about you and about your experiences in the industry, in the HR, in the HR and recruitment side of things.
Sure. Thanks, Nikunj. Happy to be here. Saurabh, I work with Omidyar Network, which is an impact investment firm. I lead the human capital vertical here. As part of my role, basically, I work with the portfolio organizations where we invest in and help them with the people strategies, issues, and challenges. Most of our organizations are fairly early stage in their evolution, which basically means that one of the biggest things which I get to work with organizations is around their hiring practices, hiring strategies, and so on and so forth. Been an HR practitioner for a little over 17 years now. Most of my experience has been with early stage organizations. Before joining Omidyar Network, I was heading HR for Snapdeal for a period of 3 years. I've seen significant scale-ups in different places, including Snapdeal. As I said, happy to be here. Happy to share my experiences and learnings over the years with all of you.
Yeah, Saurabh, thanks and welcome. Very interesting to note that while you have also worked in companies like Snapdeal, where there was a very fast scale-up across different departments. So you have been part of scaling both HR and recruitment teams and recruitment processes. But also in the current role at Omidyar Network, you also are working as an HR extension or HR advisory board for companies that get funded by Omidyar, and then you also try to coach them. So a lot of companies here are coming in, from that kind of background where they're scaling fast and they're trying to hire, they're trying to also build people and culture practices. So your experiences, but that's why it's going to be very interesting and useful to them. So welcome again. I think let's get started. So what I'll do is I'll just start, and then at appropriate appropriate section, whenever I think there is something specific of relevance to what you guys have done, both Arohi and Saurabh, I'll try to bring you in. Okay. Okay, so let's get started. So let me end the poll first. So I'm seeing a lot of interesting results, first of all. Let me share the results of the poll as well. I hope you guys can see it. So a lot of people here, and we always try to see first that, what is bringing you people here, and what is the objective. So a lot of people are saying that they're here to understand and learn tips and tactics to improve joining ratio. 33% people are here to understand the psyche of why candidates back out. And then some of them are 4% are here only for speaker insights. So I guess, speakers are not so important here, and which is how it should be. I think it should all be about the value that we can bring in and unlock in the community and the network. I want to hear from other recruiters. 5% are here, but I am definitely recommending you that connect with them in the chat section. We also have a community. Most of the learning is going to be driven by the community. So although only 5% people have said that, I would encourage you to use the chat section to introduce yourself, talk about it, because there's a lot of synergy that you will be able to see here. Second question was, we actively measure the joining ratio. 74% companies actually said that they do measure the joining ratio, which is a great news. And out of which companies have reported what is the joining ratio that they're seeing. It's a kind of mixed bag right now. A lot of companies have less than 25% joining ratio, which means out of 4 people who accept, 1 person is joining. And we also define joining ratio there very clearly. For every 100 offers made, how many candidates join your team? We're not talking about offer acceptance. We're talking about after they have accepted the offer, how many are joining your teams, and which is reported as 25%, which means out of 4 offers, less than 1 person joined, and all of that. So you can see a lot of pain, a lot of problems that we can see from the data that is coming from the survey. So my hope is, and our collective hope is, from the point of speakers and other people in the room, is how can we increase this for everyone out here? How can we, lift it by in the next segment? So if you are in 25%, how can you go to 25 to 50%? If you're already in 52%, then how can you go beyond that? So let's look at that. That's a goal that we have a very clear goal in front of us. Then we also asked, why do you think candidates don't join after accepting the offer? And most of the people have responded that they are losing candidates because somebody else is offering more salary, which is a common problem that we all see. So great, thanks for everyone. Thanks to everyone who responded to this survey. Let me just close it. Okay, so let's start. Basically, this whole webinar started from the point that this is something that we recently saw around 2 weeks ago. Somebody reported this on LinkedIn. Everybody kind of might have seen this. It went viral. A candidate reached out to a founder who had been waiting for the candidate to join for last 1 week or for 1 month or so. And on the joining date, it happened again, which it happens to most of us, right? And this whole point, this whole episode became a point of conversation on LinkedIn. And although we had heard about this problem from many people, and we have been hearing about it at least for 2 years, but this, I think, is a tipping point. And we realize that this is a tipping point. Then how do we understand that, and how do we actually do something about it? And I'm just defining it again. Joining ratio, when we're saying is joinings after they have offered, after they have accepted the offer. And why I'm saying it's a tipping point is because what we need to understand here is that the backdrop of tech talent in general, talent market in general, but especially for the tech talent, has shifted. And why it has shifted is something that you would be seeing every day around you. And this kind of is a result of gradual changes that were happening around us. But then the pandemic happened, and that really was a tipping point in a lot of things which kind of changed irreversibly. Health became more important, family became more important, work from home became more important, choices became more important. Recently, we had a moonlighting kind of a discussion in the industry with profiling for so many people who were doing moonlighting. And again, there's a divided house that whether it is right or not right, because the candidate choices, the employee choices are changing. And the sooner we understand that, the better it is. And that's why we are saying it's a tipping point, because if we don't understand that, that we are now moving from a management controlled economy to an employee driven economy. What it means is the people, by now we realize as a company that the management can't run the show. We need employees to be enabled. We need employees to be taking decisions everywhere. And it is becoming more decentralized in that way. And these employees who are calling the decisions are employees themselves, and they also care for these things. So you can't really, look away from these things and say, hey, we want to do things differently. We have to be as a part of the economy changes. We have to understand and embrace those changes. And the bigger factors that why this is happening is the constraints from the older world that we all kind of thought they were implicit are really falling apart very fast. Location, for example, I remember when we started, we had different job pages. We had different companies coming from Bangalore, Delhi, and they used to look for local talent in that place. And even in Delhi, they would only look for, within Delhi, Noida. I only want people from Noida. I only want people from Navi Mumbai. And that is how the labor markets or job markets were. But now we are seeing that the employee locations are really not important. The constraints of that world are falling apart. Now people are questioning that how many hours I'm working doesn't really matter. They're questioning that how many days do I work doesn't matter. They're asking, why my work is separate from my family? Can't I have both? And these are the constraints that we were living with for ages. And in this economy, those questions or those constraints are being questioned. And techies today have many needs, and this in general is true for everybody who's working. Whoever is good talent is having a lot of needs just apart from one job that pays them a fixed salary, and they have many options. And because of this backdrop change, companies who don't realize the backdrop has shifted and who continue to live in the past, they will not be able to hire retail talent. So I think that is something that we all need to understand very clear here, that why we have to find a fundamental and long-term solution to this problem. And we can't just think about hacks. And the whole webinar and this conversation that we have and why we have Arohi and Saurabh and so many people in the room is we have to find something fundamental. We are not looking for short-term hacks, some playbook from some company, some tweak here and there that will get you the result. We have to understand this properly, and we have to find a proper solution for this problem. And my thinking and my belief is that if we do this right, then this actually is a great opportunity. This everything which is a challenge can be converted to an opportunity. Companies who are not able to understand this will be suffering, and the companies like us who are understanding this and embracing and changing, they will be actually getting better talent and getting better results. So with that background, let's move to the important point again about how do we see this problem. So when you ask any company or any recruiter network that my joining ratio is low, you will get to hear about suggestions which are all around what happens after somebody's offered. So you'll hear about cred giving MacBooks before somebody, as soon as somebody accepts the offer, they send a MacBook. Or some people send a welcome kit. Some people say, okay, why don't you do more follow-ups? Some people say, call them to your office, and a lot of different tactics. And companies focus mostly after the candidate has accepted the offer, and they think now is the time for them to improve joining ratio. But if you really look at it, where they should be focusing and where we should be focusing more of our effort is not what happens after offer, but what happens before the offer. What happens before the offer, right from the point where candidate is interested in the company, from application to the offer, this is where most of the joining ratio variables are locked. This is how things have already happened by that time, which defined or decide or determine the joining ratio that we have. So joining ratio is not a joining problem; it's a hiring problem. And if you want to solve it, we have to solve it in hiring before the offer is made. And if I were to break down different processes or different steps that happen in the hiring process, so you have sourcing where you find somebody, then you have discovery of candidate goals, where you try to understand if this candidate is what the candidate is looking for, and you try to map it to what you have to offer, and you try to match and see if there's going to be a fit. Then you run interviews. Then you have offer discussion where you present an offer, you talk about it, whether this is a great offer or good offer or bad offer. And then you basically, after the offer is made, there is a window where the candidate is about to join, or there's a time lag, and then you do something in that window before the person joins and after the person accepts. So if you look at these stages of your hiring process, everywhere, what you do here in any of these steps is where your joining ratio gets impacted. Now, how important is each step, right? Not all the steps are equally important. Some steps have a large disproportionate amount of impact on the joining ratio. So if you look at sourcing, how you source, where you source is of course one variable, and it's let's say it contributes around 15% to joining ratio that you will have. But the bigger and the most important thing that very few companies understand is a discovery of candidate goals in today's economy, in the employee-driven kind of economy that we are seeing today. What are they looking for, and whether we can really meet what they're looking for is a very important part of the entire process. And companies who don't do this, they have the problem of leak in the downstream steps all the way down. And this is where, and very few companies do it, they call it screening. And this is screening is where, so we call it, we all call it screening, where we just try to look at what the candidate has and does the candidate have what we need? It's screening, but I'm shifting the conversation from screening to discovery of candidate goals. So that is a very large amount of weightage that goes in the joining ratio problem. Then you have interviews, then you have offer discussion, then you have post-offer interaction. So post-offer interactions, where most companies spend most of the time, in my mind, is actually the lowest value thing that you can do to improve joining ratio. We all should be focusing much ahead, much before in the process. Let's see every stage, every step, and let's see how we can influence the joining ratio. So of course, everybody knows that when you're doing things around your company that are attention grabbing, you're doing something that are employee centric, you're doing something which creates and establishes a brand, then you of course have a better joining ratio, because your brand has a pull. People know about your brand, they've seen it, they have seen the value that you are upholding. So of course that is going to create an impact. So even at the time of sourcing, people already will come in with a lot of velocity and a lot of interest. So this is one of the best, one of the most time-tested ways of creating increasing joining ratio. You do something, you stand out, and then there are a lot of ways of doing it. Some very expensive, some more creative, but there are ways in which you can grab the attention. But a lot of companies, then when we talk to them, they say that we are not show, we are not cred, we don't have money, and we don't have resources and marketing team to actually spend on employer branding, and we can't really create a very high awareness campaign around employer brand, which also is fine, because I think clarity is more important than just money. A lot of times, whether it is corporate branding or whether it is employer branding, we think it's a matter of money. The more money we throw, the more eyeballs we can grab. But here is where I think employer branding is a bit different. What happens is, even if you don't have a very high level employer brand, you do have a chance to grab the attention of people when they are looking at other companies. An example of that is, let's say, Cutshort. So on Cutshort, when people come, they sign up, they look at companies, they can see your company based on the matching, not based on just based on the plan of you are on or the money that you're spending, based on the relevance. So if your job comes there, if your company is relevant, if company, let's say the candidate is looking at some other company and some other jobs, and they see your company, now they can explore your company, and that is your shot to grab attention of somebody who was not aware of your company before. But now once they were active on the platform like Cutshort, now they happen to look at your company, and how differentiated you look, how effectively you can communicate what you stand for, is something that you can control. In this example, in this screenshot, this is an example of how frequently asked questions is, let's say, is a feature that we roll out on Cutshort, where every company has a shot of explaining what their company does, and this is where clarity is more important than money. Because if we will show your company if it is relevant, and as soon as it is relevant, it is your shot. If you're able to articulate yourself well, if you're able to articulate what you stand for and what will, why should techies or why should people care about your company, then I think it's a great opportunity for you to even attract talent and then make them interested in the company. A short short circuit to the employer branding, a general employer branding campaign that is very expensive or takes a lot of resources, but a cheaper way and effective way of doing it. How you source also is very important. And again, it also matters and affects the joining ratio. Network referrals is known to to be more credible as compared to the general job portals. And then you also have platforms that are serious about trust. You might have heard about a new feature that we have been rolling out on Cutshort, where we are now letting candidates indicate that they are more professional, they are more inclined to accept the offers, whatever information they're putting on the profile is more accurate. So we are letting, now we realize in this market, in this employee-driven market, we need to have a trust as a major currency between companies and the candidates. So a platform like Cutshort, where we are highlighting trust, is also those all platforms also can be very interesting and useful as you go forward to get the right people in the funnel, the people who are generally more serious about the credibility, about their professionalism. So that's something also which is very important. Second part which I mentioned was discovery, and I've talked about it that discovery is about not screening. It is not screening. It is about what are they looking for, what are their career goals, and how can and whatever their career goals are we a good fit as a company, and in this role can we fulfill those career goals. And that is the proper discovery process that is happening. And this is a survey that we had done, we have been doing actually on a consistent basis. And apart from salary, these are the top 3 other 4 reasons that candidates care about. They care about quality of work, they care about learning, they care about culture of the company, they care about technical quality of a team, they care about time flexibility and remote work. So if these things are important to them, it's not just salary what they're after, then what is driving them? And then figuring out their career goals is a very important part of the entire discovery process. And why discovery process is actually so important that can make or break things is, let's say you do a discovery of the candidate over 30-minute call, you try to understand what are they looking for. Now, let's say they are, we cannot offer what a candidate is seeking, whether it is a salary or whether it is beyond salary, the kind of mentorship that they need, and our team is small, whether it's remote work, whether it is a specific kind of stack that they want to work in, whatever it is, that if we think it is not something that we can offer, and we are very clear about it, then we can, we stop there and we stay connected, and they refer people to more candidates to us. If we realize that this is something that we can potentially offer and this looks to be a fit, then whatever information that we are learning in this step, it kind of propagates all the way to the other steps that are going to happen after this step. So let's say, they are after mentorship, as I said, in which case your interviews can be changed, your offers can be changed, the way you communicate your offers can be changed around mentorship. You can highlight those points more. And if you see something which is an important thing, but you don't have it really, but it's not very important, but something which is which might be important for them when they actually are going to decide between multiple offers, then you know that this is a weak point that you have and you can do something about it. So that's why discovery process is so important. And this is where you can, in fact, not just at the time of hiring, you can take whatever you learn about the candidate and their goals, about what are the problems that they're trying to solve in their career today. You can take it all the way after even the candidate joins, and you can use that understanding and intelligence to build the career growth plan after they have joined. And this, I think, is a great point for us to talk to Arohi, who has implemented a process like this at her company. So Arohi, you there?
Yep.
Okay, so I hope you were able to relate to the points I made so far. And what we would love to know is, this when you started the whole recruitment, experimentations in your company, and you set out to improve your joining ratio. How did that happen? And when you were doing that, what did you realize about discovery process? Was this something that you identified as a major pain point or something to be fixed?
Sure. So first of all, our hiring problem was a little bit different. While we were trying to scale, we were also trying to look for a very specific kind of talent, right? So we had to really kind of refine our hiring processes, and we went through many stages of creative iterations. So for us, discovery kind of became a two-way process, where we are giving that vantage point into what we do, creating the visibility, creating the transparency about who we are as a company, what we do, how we do it, who your peers are going to be. So creating as much visibility as possible in that short period of time, while also trying to understand what the candidate is actually interested in. So like you said earlier in the talk as well, so if the candidate is interested in working with interesting peers, having a nice, fun, energetic, passionate team to work with, that is something that we'll shine more light upon, while also trying to understand from the candidate what are their career goals, and what are their values, and what are their expectations. So in terms of discovery, we try to align on culture, values, expectations, and we try to bring everyone on the same page, whether it's the recruiter or whether it's the candidate or whether it's the interview panel, and so that there is no shock to the candidate at later point in time. So we set expectations throughout.
Got it. And can you just walk us through a bit about how exactly your hiring process is structured to create a discovery? But this the way you described, the discovery looks to be an expensive process. When you're processing so many candidates, right? How do you talk to them and spend time in understanding them?
Yeah, it is pretty extensive actually. So, so let's say we are getting candidate applications from Cutshort, right? So we'll do one level of screening on Cutshort, definitely, for example, on the resume. And then there's a lot of people that we actually find interesting that we want to talk to. So then there are two ways that we do this. And this has also come up through an iterative trial and error process, which now that we've refined it quite a bit. One is that all our recruiters get on extensive calls with each candidate right at the get-go. So these are all like 30-minute to 1-hour calls where it's a two-way discovery process. So the candidate is asking any and every questions that they have about what the company is all about, what we do, how we do things, what are the clients about, etc. And where we also ask the candidate a lot of questions. And some of the questions are scenario-based, some of the questions are more about their own goals and experiences and expectations, and where we actually gauge, we try to gauge a lot of underlying values for the candidate. So it could be things like trying to gauge the learning mindset, trying to gauge whether they are intrinsically collaborative or whether they're kind of like a lone wolf. So we know what team they would rather align with. We also try to gauge whether they're somebody who would be empathetic in their interactions. So if it's a client-facing role that we're looking for, we'll also try to gauge things like respect, empathy. Are they humble in their interactions? Can they talk well? Things like this. So how we have been able to do it at scale is we've tried to implement this new model where we do open forums every month, where I hold these open forums on LinkedIn. And every month I talk to maybe 15 or 20 candidates that my recruiters have pre-screened. And it's an open two-way discussion where I again shine light into what the company does, and the candidates just come and we have a friendly discussion about whatever's on their mind.
So you have these open forums happening every month, every 7 days. What is the frequency like?
Yes, so we have them every month. They're pre-scheduled so that, and the visibility is also created well in advance. So if anybody is interested, they can pre-register on those open forums right there and then it happens at a regular interval every month.
Okay, that's great. So I think we'll have more questions around it. Something like this we also do at Cutshort when we hire. We call it open house. And we have been hiring, I think, all our sales, customer success, and as well as for tech roles. We have been using open houses very, very effectively. And the same logic, we have understood over a period of time that candidates are looking for these 3 or 4 things. So instead of they trying to figure this out on their own through sources like LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and they're trying to find very inefficiently, what if we can actually have a direct one-to-one conversation or direct, frank, candid conversation where we can tell them exactly how we measure and how we stack up on those 4 things that they care about. And in our case, for example, it turned out that techies typically wanted flexibility and the freedom to choose a stack, to choose not just work in only one front end or back end, but they also want to go breadth-wise. So we highlighted those things in an open house that these people on our team already are doing it. They have graduated from being a front-end developer to a full-stack developer, or from full-stack developer to a cloud developer, and they like those journeys when they actually see somebody has traveled those journeys before. And we have been able to convince them, or at least understand them first of all. And a lot of people who think who find that our kind of company or our lack of processes in some ways, like say we don't have unit testing in some of the areas, so then they don't like it, then they opt out of the process. But if they like the chaoticness of it, then they actually become more interested in the process. And then once they become more interested in the process, then they have more velocity, they have more drive to actually complete all the process and all the steps. And all the way in the offer stage, we use this information that we learned about them to actually drive the offer. And we're going to talk about it as well. But yeah, so that's very interesting that we also have done it. We actually have written a blog post on it as well. So I think in one of the tactics that today I shared in an Excel sheet on the Google spreadsheet, there's a link of that thing. So we'll be sharing it, that tactic sheet with everyone after the webinar. And we can you can look at the blog as well. So thanks, Arohi, for your inputs here.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think discovery process, if it is so important and if you do it right, my experience and my conversation with people like Saurabh and Arohi have been that if you do it right, it can actually influence and change the game a lot. Then the next process comes, which is interviews, and a lot of times, again, it's a perspective change. When we look at interviews, we look at the whole thing as the company. Now we have had a talk, we have had a discovery, or we have had a screening. Now the candidate is being evaluated by the company, and we have decided all the steps to do that. But the problem here is that it's not just you who's evaluating the candidate. The candidate also at all points is trying to validate whether the person has made the right choice, because every interview for them is also one more effort. They have, as we discussed earlier, they have a lot of options. And if something is not heading in the right direction, it really is not exciting for them to continue the conversation. So while you are trying to evaluate them, they're also trying to make a sense of your work culture. They're trying to make a sense of how how the hiring manager, how the interviewer is talking about it, how open the interviewer is about feedback or about discussions or about answers or solutions that are not there in the script. And they're trying to look at all this data. They're trying to look at how punctual you are. They're trying to look at how good your process is. They're trying to look at how prepared the interviewer is. And all these things are happening while the whole interview process is happening. So this is an opportunity for us to do something about. If we just think of a hiring process like a fixed and rigid interview process, where you have, let's say, all the candidates are going through a sort of a conveyor belt, where all the interviews are already predetermined. You have interview 1, interview 2, interview all the way to interview 4, and with different people. What you're trying to do here is you're trying to run every candidate as per the same process. But what if you could also customize the interview process for different kind of candidates? So we discussed that somebody who in the discovery process is showing more emphasis or putting more emphasis on how the coding culture or how the engineering culture is, or how have been the growth journeys of people who have worked here before. And that is something that is clearly an important criteria for that, one of the important criteria for that person. Then what you can do is you can group these people along, and as compared to having a fixed interview process, you could have something like a reverse interview. And again, this is something which we have also talked about in the past. It is also a blog link for that as well. But basically, reverse interview is where you give the chance to the candidate to interview your interviewers, your hiring manager, your engineers, and your peer group. And the candidate comes with all the questions that they want to ask, and the two value that you can derive from this reverse interview. One is the candidate, whatever the candidate is interested in, the candidate is able to ask directly the right people. They know that recruiters are selling. They know that the hiring manager or founder is selling, but they know that engineers or peers who they are going to work with are more credible, are more trustworthy. People are not going to hide things. So that is something which creates a kind of trustworthy relationship between the candidate and with your team, and they are going to be able to get the answers to the questions that matter to them the most. Second thing, what you want to learn more is this is the continuation of the discovery process, because whatever questions they're going to ask you and ask your team are an important indicator of what really matters to the candidate. if they're going to, let's just say they're asking the candidate or your team or your team or your tech team about things like, are you working on weekends? Do you think there is some other problem in management or micromanagement, or there's some other thing about which is important to them. You kind of understand that what is important to them, and you try to understand their psyche and their psychology, and which you can use in further refinement of your process for that candidate. Maybe you realize that this candidate is looking for something which clearly is not what you can offer, in which case you can either drop off the or you stop the process there itself, or you can do something else. But idea here is that in a reverse interview kind of a setup, you can learn, you can give them the freedom, give them the control, and they love it, and no company is doing it. So it's a great differentiation thing for you as well. When they look at kind of open house or open forum kind of an experience, then they go in reverse interview kind of process or an experience. Nobody is doing it, and you stand out and you learn and they learn, and you go, and both of you, and the 10 to 15% people drop at that stage, but the 75% people move with a lot of velocity after that. So again, the whole idea is, instead of thinking of the hiring process as a fixed rigid process, whatever we have learned about the candidate, can we group them? It's not customized for every candidate, can we at least have groups that this candidate is more interested in these kind of things. Let's have a kind of slightly different process for them versus somebody else, let's say, who is not so much about the peer group, but who is actually interested more about how the company is going to accelerate fast, who is looking at stock options, who's looking at what is the vision and mission and why you're doing it. In which case, instead of wasting all the time, you arrange a session of 4 or 5 such candidates with a founder or a CTO very early on in the process. Again, you have to balance it where you put it, but you can put it beforehand instead of waiting for the candidate to come to you with the questions all the way down, and you can try to do it early enough. So the whole point about customizing interviews and again driving it from a discovery process that you had about the candidate can be a massive tool for you to increase joining ratio. And this is where I think let's hear from Saurabh. Saurabh, I was talking to you the other day, and you were mentioning that a lot of companies that you have seen, you've seen that they try to have some room for customization for the interview process. So can you talk a bit more about it? In what scenarios it happens, and in what could be challenges as well in that scenario?
Sure, Nikunj. I think, Nikunj, the point which you made in last 35-40 minutes since we've started this discussion is a pertinent point, that especially on the tech talent side, as much as companies are looking to have good talent come and join them, and there's no dearth of good choices which the talent itself has, or the candidates have in front of them, right? And therefore the chart which you showed on the previous slide, the interview process is really a conversation where, as much as you are looking to hire that most suitable candidate for yourself, they're essentially evaluating you as well as an organization. They're evaluating you not just as an organization, they're also evaluating you as a prospective manager, peer, the kind of ecosystem they're going to be working with. And these are all important factors, as you mentioned in your slide as well, which today's good top talent are looking at, beyond just the most obvious. They're definitely looking at what kind of people we're going to work with, what kind of challenges or tech ecosystem I'm going to be working on, what kind of problems I'm going to be solving on, and so on and so forth. Therefore, when you're actually down to the stage of meeting and speaking to candidates, you should have the ability as an organization to be able to showcase what is of interest to them. And that's what we're talking about here, right? So there are 2 ways you can do that. And what I've seen typically in the organizations I get to work with, one, they have these 2 or 3 different tracks of interview process or hiring process, right? For the same role, right? Depending on what kind of candidate pipeline it's coming in and they're getting in, right? So typically for any role, right? I mean, except for the entry level or the fresher hiring, which you're doing right from campus, apart from that, there's always a range of experiences which you're years of experiences which you're looking at for any role. It's not very straightjacket, right? So depending on where the person is in his or her journey, what kind of experience that person has already had, what kind of aspiration that person has, what kind of views or expectation this person has from their next role or next organization, which is the part of the discovery process which you and Arohi so nicely explained. You define 2 or 3 different tracks, right? Depending on that, then you put people into those tracks to go through the hiring process, clearly demarcating that what would happen at each stage. right? So if somebody is very keen on, what kind of a tech platform I'm going to be working on, what kind of a technology I'm going to be using on, what kind of a problem or platform we're going to be creating, then you put them through, say, people who are the architect sorts, who are, who are working at that kind of a side of your tech ecosystem. If somebody is more keen on, okay, how would my career trajectory would look like, how do people grow here, then you put people in your interview process who've risen through the ranks in your organization, so that they can provide that viewpoint to those individuals, right? So having those multiple interview tracks and putting people through those tracks is one way to do it. And I see a lot of companies have started now doing, at least a bulk of companies who are looking to hire really top talent and want to make sure that they are pitching to them appropriately, are going down the path. Second, I've also looked at is where companies are open to tweaking their hiring process depending on how the conversation with with a candidate whom they really like goes. Right. So during the conversation, if you feel that, you know what, this guy is a great fit, he seems to be liking our organization, seems to be liking our role, but it'll be great if he can have a chat with CTO, because CTO can give him that high, the 30,000 feet overview, which is what this person is keen on. Right. So even if an interaction with CTO may not be part of your interview process, but just because you're finding somebody with a real spark and you want to hit the ball out of the park with that candidate, get the CTO to interview that person, right? So your openness to modify your interview process the moment you realize that you're landing on somebody whom you really want to hire, and they seem to be liking you as well, and there is this final step in the process which would make sure that the deal gets closed. You should have the openness to do it. Your leaders and the people in the organization should be open to doing that as well, because you're ultimately talking about talent which is hard to find as well, right? So those are the two ways in which typically I've seen organizations tweaking and coming up with customized hiring processes to suit the needs of the candidates they're trying to evaluate and get on board.
So thanks, Saurabh, for that, for adding so much of insight and color to that. Please, anyone, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat, so we'll be able to pick those questions later. But in the meantime, Saurabh, if you have any responses to the questions, and Arohi, you also, if you have any questions that you can answer in the chat section, just go ahead and do it, so that we can pick up the leftover ones later on. I think a lot of interesting points are already coming. I actually would love to read more, but I'll have to move on. But I'd love to read more in the end, and then we'll pick up those. And I think the challenge here, while you were saying that, Saurabh, I think is the question that people might be having is, how would we manage a hiring process which is so dynamic and flexible, right? So that will be now the challenge. But I always mention that for when you want results, and your results are not just joining ratio. I think while we're talking about it, I think we'll be talking about it more. But joining ratio or percentages and all of that is great. But what is actually you're going for is, are you able to get people who can drive your mission forward? Are the people who are performers and who are going to stay for long term? And I think out of all the things that we do to get them, we are not looking thousands of them, right? Most of companies here are going to be hiring at most hundreds. And if that is the effort which is required to get them and the right people in, it's worth the effort. Else we will be making people join and all of that will happen, but they'll not stay, right? So it's important for us to get it right. And especially, and I think this again is in the backdrop of the change that is happening around us. Every candidate, and there at least, if not every candidate is different, there are groups of candidates and they're showing different signs. Handling them differently is definitely there's a case for it. We can't just have one process fits all kind of a mindset anymore. And if we do it, then we'll see dramatically different results. So anyway, so moving on, so that we have more room open for the questions later on. All of this happens when you have done the discovery, you have understood their needs, the interviews are also done. You have a go ahead, and you want to make an offer to the candidate. And again, how most companies do it, which is what is depicted here in this picture. We look at what offer they have already, how many offers they have, how much is the current salary, how much is the expected salary, and then we try to make the first offer, which is which has some room, some wiggle room, because you have not given the best offer. but you try to give no starting point or have a starting point where you can start a conversation. And then you look at accept the offer, and then we look at if the person is offering accepting the offer or not, and then we do the whole the drill around it. And then we do a couple of iterations of the offer if really if the candidate really insists on that. And then eventually, if the candidate accepts or no, if the candidate accepts, then most of the companies, they give a deadline that today is Wednesday, so by Friday, please accept the offer. And this is how it looks like. And then the iterations and revisions also. There could be some companies have one revision policy that they'll only revise once. Some companies have maybe a couple of times, and then sometimes they give up. Sometimes companies don't give up and all of that. But eventually, this is how it resembles in most companies. And why we have marked this in red is because when you force someone to accept the offer, then of course the person accepts the offer, but the person is not convinced, and we're going to talk about it. What are the consequences of doing that down the line? But this is how most companies do it. And when we are presenting the offer, there also most companies are talking 80% of the time about the salary and benefits. They know that either they know salary is a very important point, so they're highlighting that, or they're defending about salary. They're defending about why we are not paying so much, but then we are better because we have some performance incentive, we have some appreciation revisions that happen every 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is. And we're talking mostly about financial things. While in my belief, I think when you're presenting an offer and a great offer conversation is 50% times 50% of the conversation is around salary and benefits, but 50% of the time and the time should be going in mapping the career journey for the user or for the candidate. When they came in, as I said, and in a market like this, if candidates are coming to you, they're not coming to you only for on the maximum salary. And I understand and believe that a lot of people would say that salary is the most important driving factor. But believe me, when that happens, it is like somewhere we have lost the plot. We have lost the differentiation, and now we're just trying to close focus more in salary. So here I think 50% of the conversation should be, if you have done a discovery right, if you have invested your time in understanding every candidate in the entire process. After every interview, you were in touch trying to understand from both sides what was the candidate asking about, what do you think was important thing for the candidate. If you have a very high touch point and you have a very strong hold on what the candidate really was looking for, then your 50% conversation should be around those topics, which may not be just about salary. Whether it's salary or not, that is not, you can offer whatever you can, but the 50% focus, if it goes in the career growth and other parameters, that is where differentiation can come. And I think the litmus test is 20% difference rule. So if you are offering 10 lakh rupees to someone and a different company offers 20 lakh, 20 or 12 lakhs, or if you are offering 20 lakhs and somebody's offering 24 lakhs, I think that range of salary, difference, you should be able to, control and handle. And if your offer is not chosen, if your offer is always has to be the highest bidding offer, then clearly somewhere in the discovery and the mapping of what candidate is looking for, we are not able to do our job very well. So maybe this litmus test you can apply that, if do you think your offer will still be chosen if somebody even offers 20% more salary than you? If it happens like 50% more, then of course there will be higher pressure and there will be more, it will be more challenging for the person to accept the offer. But 25% is something that definitely should be bridgeable if you are able to understand the candidate better and able to talk about it and communicate it really well. Important thing to note at offer stage also is, and I see a lot of companies and a lot of, I also hear from a lot of candidates who crack all these interview rounds, and then when they go to the offer stage, a lot of companies, they ask for too much private information. They ask about, how many offers you have. Can you send me the screenshot of the offer? Can you send me the bonuses you have? Can you show me the stock option you have? Can you show me, how much? Can you show me a salary slip? Can you show me a bank statement? Can you, and they try to pay as low as possible, of course. And when they're negotiating every time and revising the offer, they're trying to sometimes even devalue the candidate. They're trying to say that, you are only 2 years experience in React Native and we are looking for 3 years. Of course, the salary will be a bit lower. You can learn and understand. I understand you can learn, but there's still a gap in what we are expecting and what we were paying for, or what we had indicated, and between you. And they're trying to devalue the candidate to some extent, or they're giving aggressive deadlines to accept the offer. And this is, if the company does this, and the difference and the distance between the company and the candidate kind of increases, and this is a trust gap. When we were doing all this thing, right, the candidate came to your door, you had a great conversation with them, everything was looking great, then you had some agreement about salary as well. Everything looked good, then you had interviews, very costly, expensive, time consuming interviews with all the candidates, and everything looked good. And the stage of offering came, suddenly the company becomes a seasoned player. A company becomes, the company starts treating candidates with low trust, and they ask for all this information and all of that. And then suddenly a candidate who was really very enthusiastic about it, and suddenly the whole trust level goes down. And now this is the point. This is on us, on the company's part, to actually drop the ball there. If we had done things properly, if we had not done these things, if we had continued with the credibility and trust that we had built, then I think a lot of issues that we blame the candidate side on, they could be avoided. That because once we reduce the trust level, then they also reduce the trust level. Then they also have reasons to go for the maximum offer, and they realize that for you, candidate is just one more candidate to be closed at the lowest cost, right? And they don't really see that why do you care about them genuinely, because the entire thing is kind of lost in this process. So something to ponder. I'm not judging anyone here, but something to ponder, that can we do something here, which is, again, because the context has changed, we are no longer in the employer management driven market, we are in the employee driven economy. And if we are in that economy, then we have to do certain things. We have to be more fair and more modern in the way we do things. And if we do it, we have been doing it, and I think we have always found great results. We don't see even a single negotiation request, because they know that whatever we are offering is the best, and they believe that we are doing the best job. Then post-offer engagement, and this is very well-known road that we have all been to. Offer has been accepted, and then we talk. And I've actually heard and received requests from people like, can you track somebody on Cutshort? Are they still looking for a job? They go to Naukri, they look up the candidate and see if the candidate, when was the resume last updated. So we try to stalk, we try to do desperate follow-ups every 5 days, 3 days, 2 days. Recruiters try to follow up with the candidate, asking them, are you on track, and stuff like that. And we send welcome kits, we do formalities, send a laptop or something like that, or ask them to fill up a form. All these things are good. I'm not saying they're bad, but basically they're not really they're not really the most useful things that you can do. And if you are seeing ghosting at this point, it typically is happening because you are following up an offer that the candidate is not 100% sure of. Any ghosting happens because the candidate or somebody who is ghosting you is not really getting the right vibe, and he's not, or she is not 100% convinced, but you are following up. They missed 2 or 3 of your follow-ups, or they missed replying to your follow-ups, and now they are in a very emotionally in a state, or socially they're in a state where they can't respond back. They start avoiding, and it happens, but it should not happen too often. If you are able to discover, if you were able to do the right discovery, if you were able to position yourself as trustworthy, and you were really caring about a candidate, about the decision that they make, right? So if you were just saying that, I just want you to make the right decision. We think there's a great fit between you and what you're looking at, what our company is offering, and you really think that this will be an eventual success for you. If you're really doing that, and if they believe that your decisions are, if your goals and motivations are correct, and it's balanced, it's not only for your best interest, then most likely they will not ghost. So if ghosting is happening too often, again, a sign that somewhere trust level was and trust and discovery were the two things that could have been improved. So putting it all together, now we are almost at the end before we open it for the Q&A, and I'm going to show you one more thing. But is 100% joining ratio possible, which was the title of this webinar? Definitely it is. We have seen companies. We have before this webinar, I talked to many talked to a lot of professionals in the TA and recruitment industry, and they have confirmed that it is possible. Now, it is of course 80% also is not bad, because a lot of situations will happen because of which they may not join, which is also okay. But you should not have the no-show kind of a thing. If you're having no-shows too often without information, again, something is wrong. Even in the best, like in most companies, if you're doing it right, they may not, after accepting, they may not join, but then expect them to inform to them as early as possible. If that's not happening, and that's not happening too often, then there's something wrong in terms of the way we conducted, or maybe the way we discovered and the way we found those people. Something needs to change to make that situation to avoid a situation. But the bigger question, and while the most all of discussion here today has happened around is 100% joining ratio possible, how to improve it? The main question is it really the ratio that is the end all be all? Is it really the holy grail that we should be going after? I think this is where I think we need to think about something bigger than that, which is success ratio. And this actually was this ratio was something which Victor, who is also, and I talked to him about before coming to the webinar, and he actually weighed in on this ratio. But I was thinking about something similar. But what this success ratio basically means is how many candidates we hired who joined and who actually performed. So out of 100 people who joined, how many of them actually performed to the level of performance that we anticipated? How many of that, how much of that happened? So like 100 people, out of 100 people, 70 people performed to the level that the hiring managers or the business expected, then a 70% success ratio. I think that is a bigger ratio, because joining ratio can be gamed, it can be hacked. You can make people join by forcing them to join. Maybe they have less options, that's why they're joining you, but they that's not going to really sustain. So what we should be looking for is success ratio. And if you think looking at success ratio, then basically you are willing to lose some of the battles. So if a candidate is great, awesome, but the candidate has something that a candidate you figure out in the discovery process or in the hiring process, that a candidate will be deviating or will be looking for something that you clearly are not very strong at, then you're willing to lose a battle and you're okay with it. So willing to lose some battles, willing to lose some candidates for the overall success ratio in the company is something which is, which is a great thing if you can also think about it and convince your management and your team about it, that what is the success ratio, let's capture that, and that let's optimize for that as well. So this is basically what I had in terms of the major content for discussion. And now I just wanted to very quickly show you a hiring process which can have a very high joining ratio, because a lot of times a lot of people might be thinking that okay, this is all good, but how actually we can go about doing it? It looks to be too much. It looks to be an unmanageable process. So let me just show you, and then we'll open it for the Q&A. I hope that you can still see my screen. This is one of the roles that where we had a good joining ratio. We have very high, we have a high drop, we have a high rejection ratio in this role because of the things that we are looking for in this job. So let's say we have 379 applications that are still pending. I think this job is perhaps paused, so they are no longer being considered. But this is how the entire funnel looks like. So you can see how many people have come in here. How many people have been declined? They have declined our invitation. 604 people have been rejected overall. This job has been there for I think 6 months or so. But if you look at, I just want to basically walk you through how the process is structured here, and you can try to get some sense about how do you structure the process for a high joining ratio. So this is where the applications come. You can see the match score here. So it helps us identify the good match score. We can also look at the the skill scores and the skill validation. So we also get a sense of that. We also look at quality grade. So we also get to make sure that we are not missing out on good candidates who might not who might not come to be a great match for some reason, but they have very high quality grade because of their profile. So we don't want to miss them. Let's say this is the application, and then we shortlist the people that we like, that we think are high potential. Now here, a lot of companies, when they're looking at application, they are being very particular about what are they looking for, and they reject most of the people. They shortlist only a few. They shortlist 10% people. We do differently. What we do is we shortlist most of them. Unless they are totally a misfit, we shortlist them. We want to give them a chance to prove them, because we don't know what we might be missing on their resume. So we want to do that. And as soon as they're shortlisted, we invite them to an open house. And this is where, in the open house, you can see what we send them. As soon as we shortlist, this message triggers to them. And we are asking them, we are again starting from a high trust environment. We are deviating, we're differentiating ourselves. And we are saying that, we understand you have a lot of questions around what Cutshort is, what is our goal, how is our team, and how do we work to achieve our goals. Our engineering team gets on a Zoom call every week to give you a real picture, and go ahead and join and book your session with the engineering team right here. And we drop them here after they're getting shortlisted, and they come to our open house. That's where our engineering team comes to face to face with them right away, without having any more recruiting any other layers, because we think engineers want to talk to engineers directly, and they have a lot of questions around the culture, around all of things, as I mentioned earlier, right? So now, after they have attended our open house, now we actually send them an assignment, because we know that now we have to have some quality filter or some skill filter. So we send them an assignment, and after the assignment is done, and there's a reminder stage where we send any person who has not done the assignment, we drop them here, and then again a message gets triggered to them to remind them about the assignment. But this is a whole assignment game that happens here. Anybody who is submitted assignment now is reviewed by the tech team, and after the tech team has reviewed the candidates who have submitted the assignment and they have okayed them, then the discovery call happens. Now, this discovery call is where the 30-minute, 60-minute time that Arohi was mentioning that's where this call is happening, where we're trying to understand what is this candidate really looking for. Apart from salary, what are the other parameters that this candidate has when the person will decide about which offer to take? What are exactly those 2 or 3 things? And do those 2 or 3 things we have in our company or not? And we try to only take them forward. And again, you can see special cases. So these are deviations in interview process, right? So as Saurabh was mentioning, that if this candidate is different, looking for something else, then can we do a call with Dave or Lee? And this is a linear process, but then this is not doesn't have to be linear. I can drag and drop somebody to call with Nikunj directly, because I think this candidate is looking for some sort of a leadership or a company level kind of information, and this candidate is looking for something else, right? So we doesn't have to be like a left to right strictly in that direction. We can change the flow when we think there is something, there is a group of people who need a different kind of experience. And then if we do this right, every time when we are talking to a candidate, every time when we have something interesting to note, we also pass on all this information to the next hiring manager or next interviewer, right? So you can see it here, notes and all of that, right? So you are able to, whatever you learn, what happened about this is passed on to the next interviewer, and next interviewer can actually use this information to decide about what needs to be done. So just a very small overview of how you can do all of this, right from giving chance to more people, not losing people early on just because they don't happen to have one skill that you thought they should have on their resume. Maybe they have it, maybe they haven't highlighted it, they have been learning it. Maybe somebody who's looking to be a great fit is not a great fit, right? So you want to give more chance to more people. How can you shortlist them? How can you do a very high impact open house, a group session with your engineering team, with the candidates, so that they get the culture fit very early, and they get connections and make connections that are going to stand and going to be there for long term. Then how can you still have an interview and an assignment round or something which ensures that you're not wasting time on every candidate? And then how are you going to discover very clearly? And then based on discovery call, how will you decide which step needs to happen and what time with whom, and what it will unravel? And if you do all these things, a bit of customization, but all of it is automated, can be automated. I'm showing the example of Cutshort here. You can do it with any other tool that you're using if that offers or uses functionality, but essentially it's a mindset. And once you have the right mindset, you have very, very high chances that people will not decline your offers. And once they accept the offers, they will join your company. And once they join the company, they will stay in your company for long term. So that is basically what I had today. I'm just going to stop my sharing. If you have any questions, we can look at the questions. And I think before we open, we open up for the questions. Arohi and Saurabh, I would love to have one last summarization or one summary from you that, if you want to make an additional points, great, please go ahead. And how would you summarize that? What do you think is the final advice for companies to improve and do in these certain times right now?
Sure, Nikunj, I would like to go first because I have a discovery call at 5:15. So, and I don't.
Right.
So, thanks, Arohi, for giving me the permission to go first.
Not needed.
Okay, so I'll just say a couple of things. And I see a bunch of questions around this, and really it's really a closing comment or a summary of the discussion itself, right? So we all, I mean, it's almost become a hygiene that, once you make an offer to someone, you do a bunch of different things to kind of keep the candidate interested, as they say, right? I mean, whether it is giving laptops or calling them for some lunches and all of that. Good to do. I mean, I am the last person who will say don't do it. Definitely don't overdo it, because last thing you want is bombard a candidate with meeting requests or goodies and so on and so forth. So I'm not discounting that at all. But the point I'm trying to would like to definitely make here is that in spite of doing all of that, if candidate is not joining your organization, it's not because you've done something wrong post offer. Right? It's invariably because something has not gone right before the offer was made, in that interactions which the person has had with you, whether at the time of discovery or the interview or the hiring process. And there are a lot of things which can go wrong on that front, right? Including, I mean, we've talked a lot about that. One thing I would definitely like to highlight, and Nikunj and I were speaking about it the other day, that as important as it is to talk about what exists in your organization, what is it for the individual, what is it for the candidate, it is equally important to be absolutely honest about what does not exist in your organization, right? In your endeavor to oversay, to convince or showcase your organization and the role, the meatiness of the role to the candidate, do not oversell, do not overpromise, definitely do not say something which does not exist in your organization. In fact, to the extent that it is important to call out what does not exist in your organization, it is absolutely important to call that out, right? Because I mean, information is out there. People will get to know sooner or later, right? So I think what people do appreciate is honesty as well, right? A lot. So the 2 points I would like to make here is that, post-offer engagement is a great thing. It's almost become a hygiene, I would say. But the real differentiator or the problem solution to the problem around joining ratios, it lies before, what you're doing from the time person has seen your ad or seen your job posting and reached out to you, or you have reached out to them, and the interactions which happen, the discovery, the interview, how you're dealing with that. I think those are the hooks which you need to make sure that you are strong enough. Because if that happens, then what Nikunj you said is that at the time of the offer, even if somebody has a differential of a 20%, 20-30%, if your hooks are strong enough, in terms of what the candidate is looking for in terms of career, if it is career growth, career path, and flexibility, and so on, multiple, and if you're able to provide those hooks, the chances of the person will not leave. And last point I would like to make is that, someone asked me that okay, people just leave for, and it came in the poll as well, that people just leave for compensation. True to a large degree, but also please understand that as an organization, there's only up to a certain limit that you'll be able to fight the battle on compensation, right? Any organization for that matter, right? Where you'll be able to create a differentiation is what you do with them as they go through the journey with you. And so start focusing on that, because how much ever you would try, the compensation differentiation will erode. There will be somebody who will be willing to pay 100 rupees more. I'm just making 100 and therefore fighting that battle is a losing battle. What you can actually do better on is the proposition which you create, and how do you ensure that that gets discovered by the candidate whom you want to hire. My closing comments, Nikunj.
Yeah, thanks, Saurabh. So you have to go for a discovery call, so you can leave. We'll compile all the questions and then maybe send those questions to you, and you can respond them respond to them offline, and then we can just circulate them later on. And all the best for your discovery call.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me over. All the best, everyone. Thank you very much. Bye. Bye, Arohi.
Yeah. Okay, so Arohi, you have any parting comments before we start addressing the questions?
Yes, I do actually. Am I audible? I was having some internet issues a bit earlier.
No, you're perfectly audible.
Yeah. So you talked about how the ecosystem in terms of candidates is changing and how what they're looking at is changing. So what we've seen is that candidates now want a much more human experience and want a much more honest experience. So so like Saurabh and you also mentioned earlier, if you're trying to showcase something that's not really true, it's going to come through. If you're trying to oversell, it is going to come through. So I think the underlying theme is be yourself, be honest, be true to your organization, show what is the reality. Say yes to things that you do, say no to things that you can't do, and make sure to lay everything out on the table as it is. And that kind of goes a long way. That goes on to establish trust right on to the last point of the hiring, which is the offer, where you mentioned that like how trust becomes the most important aspect at the offering time, along with the points that you've discovered in the discovery phase. So I think right at the get-go, when the first call happens to the candidate, that's where the trust actually starts getting established, and that's where you need to bring your real self to the table and be honest to yourself and the organization.
Yeah, I think one thing that I see, which is holding back a lot of companies and a lot of recruiters, is that they think they don't have the room to make changes in anything. They have been given some cards and they have to play with these cards, salary being one of them. If you are losing a lot of battles because of salary, then clearly there is a case for you to bring up with the management that say salary, we need to improve the salaries, increase the salary, because you can't be losing too many candidates to salaries. But I also think that a lot of apart from salary, a lot of people also feel constrained that they can't change other parts of the hiring process. This is how hiring is done. We have to do it at scale. We have to do it for every candidate a similar way. And they are losing their genuineness. They're losing their creativity. They're losing their differentiation, that they are not a very large company. And I think when you are a large company, then you can't deviate from the process at all. Be it take it or leave it, you have to do that. But when you are on a hiring target of, as I said, not like hundreds of candidates in 6 months or so, it is possible for you that yes, you might need more different kind of recruiters. And I think recruiters who are just doing operational work, you need recruiters who can do discovery, who can understand, map, build trust. You need both those kind of recruiters more. But then if you do it well, then you can actually create the entire experience, which is very differentiating from the other companies. And that is the strength being a startup, being a smaller company, because you can treat every group of candidates separately. You can be creative, you can have very tight and very fast feedback loop. So the moment you see, as Saurabh was saying, the moment you see that you're losing candidates because of XYZ, and you think it's really important, let's say it's remote work, whether you think it's about not working on the weekends, and you guys do work on the weekends, and you're losing candidates because of that. Now you have to do something around it. If you just continuously, if you think that is something that can't be changed, then you will continuously bleed in the market. And because you are deviating from what the companies and the employee-driven mindset is, or employee-centric mindset is. So you have to do something around it to change the constraints as well. And that is where your differentiation and your creativity also is important. As a recruiter, you're not just living with a constraint, you can also change things. That is that is the power that you have. And you should go ahead and talk to your team and get the power, exercise the power that you have. So that's something which I just borrowed from, kind of triggered from the conversation of the points that you just made.
True, I completely agree. Bring your creativity to the table.
Yep. Okay. So I think let's look at the questions first. And I think after looking at the questions for let's say 5-10 minutes, we'll rather just open it up. I think we'll just anybody who has a question, we can also perhaps invite them to speak. Let's do this a bit more informally. So let's look at some tough ones. And guys and people who are here, 150 people are here online. If you have any interesting thing that you have done at a company to solve any specific problem which is there in the question section, please respond to that question in the chat section, and we'll see if we have time where we can also get you online. Okay, so thanks, Praveen, for the appreciation. I'm just looking at the questions. I have got some question. I think somebody has actually shared a great discovery question that you can perhaps ask. And that question is, when you talk to a candidate, let's say this is the first time you're talking to a candidate, you're trying to understand what moves them. The question that you can ask them is, what have you enjoyed or have you not liked about your working experience in the past? What did you like about your experience in the past? And let's say they say, I loved that I had a freedom to do things, but I hated that I had to work on weekends, right? And this is a discovery question that you can ask again, why weekends, working on the weekend is such a pain for you? And then they say, no, you know what, I go for a guitar class, or I want to go out with my family every weekend or something like that. I try to do something. And that gives you a perspective about what candidate is thinking. And then you can ask one more follow-up question. Oh, that's great. You love doing that. By the way, we have 2 more people in the company who also are the similar thing. And that is where the whole conversation building happens. That is where the uniqueness of the whole conversation happens. And you realize that this is something that would be your X factor for the candidate to join you, because now candidate believes that you understand, you appreciate, you respect, and you are trying to do something. Maybe you can't change your game today, but you are now showing genuine sign that, okay, in 3 months, we'll try to reduce our work weekend hours. And that will give you the time to do it, right? Something like that. And that's a great question that somebody mentioned in the chat section. So a lot of interesting discovery questions you can ask, which can give you a great perspective about what is happening in the mind of the candidate, what are the things that they're really finicky about, very particular about, and what are the things that they are talking about, not a great deal, but those are the things that you can still do a workaround. So that's a great question. Now let me look at a few more. So there's a question from Riddhi, which is around, if we give a candidate the expected package, let's say they ask for 15 lakhs, we gave them a 15 lakhs package. Now, if we don't give them a deadline to accept the offer, they will try to find other offers. Which is true, right? If let's say you offer somebody 15 lakh package, and you say, great, I have offered a 15 lakh package. Now this is Wednesday, by Friday, please accept the offer. Now, what is going to happen? The person is going to accept the offer if they don't have any other offers on their hands. But you know that this candidate, if the candidate is not happy with it, and if the candidate thinks salary, they can get better salary, then even after accepting the offer, also they're going to talk to the candidates or other companies, right? So nothing is changing by you giving them a deadline, because in fact, the things have become worse in my view, because what was a high trust relationship when you could have said that, okay, fine, you do one thing, I'll give you 15 lakh offer. And I think this was something I was discussing with Arohi also. What we do in this case is, first of all, we know that 15 lakh is going to cut it or not going to cut it. Do you think 15 lakh is the only challenge this candidate has, or the candidate has some other challenges also? Because from the discovery process, we have learned enough about the candidate. We know this candidate, let's say, was looking for mentorship also, which in our company we can't provide. In which case, I know I can't offer 15 lakhs, because I know that even if we offer this, there will be 2 more points this candidate has, which might make the candidate not accept the offer. Or if we think everything is all sorted, 15 lakh is the only problem this candidate has, then what we do is we say, okay, great, no problem, we'll offer 15 lakh, we can do that. But then before we make the offer, give the final confirmation, because I don't want to be in a situation where our relationship gets burned because I offer you and you take up somebody else's offer. If you're talking to more companies, go ahead and do it. I want you to get the best offer. I want you to get the best opportunity where your career is made. We think that company is us, and 15 lakh is not a big challenge. Even if we are lower than that, I think we can still set you in your career goals as well. And then only when then we leave the relationship like that. Only if the candidate accepts or confirms verbally or on WhatsApp that, okay, I have thought about it. I was talking to 3 companies, but I think your offer, if you offer 15 lakh, I will take it. Then we just, at that point, we go ahead and make the offer. We don't do the offer beforehand. So, Riddhi, I hope that answers the question. By making people, by forcing people to join in 3 days, 4 days is not going to help, because they can always go and talk to more companies it will just create your situation more sticky, because now you have an offer which is accepted, but is likely to result in no show. And what you really want to do is give that trust, place a trust in them and give them the room, show that you care for them, show that you are okay with them talking to multiple companies. In fact, they should choose and talk to every company out there before they make a decision to join you. That confidence, when you show, then that's the time that they will really think that you're not underconfident. Your company actually has something unique to offer, and you understand whatever they need from their career, you are able to deliver on that. And hence, when they come back, they're going to come back with a lot of conviction, and you will be sleeping, very peacefully at night. Arohi, you want to add something to it? Or this is how you guys
Yeah,
are?
no, I think you've covered it pretty well. I think one thing that if I'd like to shine some light upon would be at the offer stage, a lot of people we've seen are interested in getting to know how their career is going to progress when they join the organization. And again, this comes back to discovery, that there are different types of people, different things that people are interested in. One being mainly salary, one being mentorship, one being peers, one being the kind of work that you're going to do, and the other one being what's your career trajectory. So if you're able to provide that viewpoint into how a person can grow during the offer stage, that also has seen good conversion ratios.
Yeah, I think Khyati also was asking the same question, that is it improper to have the candidate accept offer in stipulated time frame? So nothing proper here, but I think it's just that you give them some time and trust, and they will come back on it. If you force them, then you basically are shooting yourself in the foot. So then the next question is, how do you motivate candidates to attempt a test? So a lot of people don't take the test, they don't come to the open houses. Then how do you manage them? So I think when we are deviating and telling them that our team is willing to meet them over a Zoom call, which is being done every week at a convenient time. And if you think this time doesn't work for you, tell us which time you can come, which will be more convenient to you. And even then, if they're not coming, we take it as a sign that our attraction or our perception or our positioning in terms of what we can offer is not really is what they're looking for. So we remind them 2 or 3 times about whether it's assignment. We highlight it, why it makes sense, why it is so important. We care about them, and we say why every candidate goes through it, and it will be not a process for us. It is a process for you to understand how the company operates. And if they're not willing to take that step in at this stage, when they're not invested much into the company, if they're not willing to take the step to invest their time into the company, then we believe it's not the kind of candidate we want to hire. So we are willing to lose them. So we really, don't. I think it's a good chance. If they are not coming in, they are self-selecting that they are not interested, which is great, because it's less hassle for us. So same question Divya was asking, so I hope that is answered. Somebody asked how to improve joining ratio, Rahul. So Rahul, that is what we discussed at length. You may have joined a bit late. Just go through it. There is no, I think after this, we are also going to be sharing more tactical side stuff. What we discussed today is more fundamental concept level stuff. But tactical level, things that you can do are something that we are going to also compile. So if anybody, by the way, is who's there in this webinar, who has tried something, small tweak here and there, asking a specific question here and there, learning something, and using it, using any psychological things to improve it, please contribute to our learning. I think we are compiling a list of these tactical, these tactics. So if you want to get that list of 40 plus tactics, then please contribute one tactic from your side. If you want to get that list, you can write in chat here, or you can reply to the email that we have sent to you. So Ramesh is asking, the candidate travels each stage of hiring up and knowing the brand of the company, other values and stuff like that. And this includes the offer, but due to market circumstances, they try to find more avenues to improve their scale of earning, which is what they will do, Ramesh. So this is fine, right? I mean, as a candidate, they are going to look at the entire picture. They're going to evaluate and weigh in all the options before they make a decision. So our objective, our only thing which is in our control is to understand what is really important to them and position ourselves very honestly, caring for them. And if you are able to do it, and if you are able to only get the people who are going to fit in and who are going to thrive in a company, that is what we want. We don't want anyway people who are not choosing us, or who are choosing us because they are compromising on something, because in 3 months they will choose something else. If that is peer pressure, lower salary, we can make them join, but if that is something which is they're not happy with, then they will leave anyway. Lilu is asking, it's more to do with the attitude of the candidates also and their poor integrity. Even after discovery phase and the candidate giving 100% assurance, still they will do job shopping and cheat. So yes, it will happen, and that is where sourcing is important. If you are going and sourcing from low trust, low quality kind of sources, and you're not investing and building a trust early, then this problem will be magnified. Because you are right, there are hundreds, thousands of different kind of candidates. The ones that you want to talk to, how do you identify them? And these people that you are talking about, poor integrity and all of that, those can be, they show their signals, they show the indication. So if you're doing open houses, for example, you can tell from the questions they ask, you can tell from the interest that they are taking in your company. There's things that you can do. You can't change them, you can't change their psychology, but you can identify the people who are right fit for you if you do the right steps in the hiring process early. And sourcing and screening and discovery is a process for you to do that. So I hope, Lilu, it answered your question. In the chat section, you can maybe confirm if that answered. If not, then you can ask any follow-up questions. So Himani asked some questions about discovery of candidate goals. So I hope that also got answered. So I'm just going to quickly look at the chat section again. So in the meantime, while we're answering it, Neeraj and Shan, can we have the last poll, which is about their experience and the feedback? So yeah, Arohi is mentioning that on assessments. So one question from Praveen is, do you see a trend of companies slowly moving towards work from office? And do you think this will affect the joining ratio? So we have done a lot of surveys on this. And in last survey itself, I think we concluded that 70% people wanted work from home. So there is definitely a lot of friction as of today if you make people join or if you call people to your company. And there are a lot of reasons for it. Some people are actually living in metros, and from in the metro itself, they don't want to travel. And some people are living in native places as well, and they are very comfortable there, and they don't want to move just for work, because they think, why, there is no need, I can just work from wherever I am. So this will definitely be a factor. Now it's a battle. You have to decide whether you want to fight or not. In case of Cutshort, for example, and a lot of companies, they've been evolving their policies around it. But in case of Cutshort, all the teams are in office except tech team, because we realized tech teams can work remotely. And we call them every 3 months to a common offsite place where we meet them. We meet all of us, hang out together, and we try to do fun things, and as well as we try to look at the business goals and all of that. So we do it. It's mostly everything is work from home and sometimes just an office. But you have to decide whether you want to take. It's important enough for you to take the battle or not. If you make it work, if you can make it work, my suggestion for you today, based on the data and based on the survey that we have, is to not create a friction. Because even if you don't have a friction, it's difficult to hire the right talent in tech. So if you have a friction, then it will make things even more difficult. some candidates, Arun is saying, some candidates are basically offer shopping. They never had any intent to join. They just need an offer to negotiate with others. What's the good way of identifying them? I think adding unique steps which require some effort on their part is something where you can really understand. And I think open forums or open house, one of the steps where you ask them to come over, you look at their engagement and the kind of questions they're asking. And a lot of companies also ask about what have you read about a company, why Incubyte or why Cutshort only. And if they are really in the offer spree and they're not investing, because if they're doing things for offer, then they can't really go deeper into any company. And that is where you understand that they have not done any homework about the company. So I think a lot of nuances, and this is where I think a recruiter's role is so important. Uh, I think a recruiter's role in today's market is to understand the psyche of the candidates, automate things whatever they can, use whatever tools and AI and automation, matching, all these things to really improve the productivity. But this is the part where there is, Arun, there is unfortunately no definitive answer on how can you do it. It's just your feeling which you will have. Some of the questions and discovery questions that were mentioned will give you that idea that if they have no intent. And a lot of times we ask why Cutshort, and they say, I heard about this company and the tech stack is good. And that is not enough answer for me, because I know that that is not will not make you join the company. So asking the right questions, listening in, and asking some good follow-up questions will give you the answer. About how serious they were when they were approaching you. And the other way in which we do this is, we tell them upfront that we are not going to be paying, in that range, or we are, if they're just looking at more and more salary, then we break that mold and we say, our range will be in this, and that will be a final range. So basically, they decide whether they want to go ahead or not. And anybody who is going forward, even after reducing their ask, let's say they are at 14 lakhs, they're asking for 22 lakhs. And we are saying at your range or your band, we can only give maximum 17, 18, because that's the band that we are paying currently. We can pay you more stock option on that, but our band will be this, and they're going forward. It's a good sign. If they're not going forward, then we know that money is a very important point for them, and in which case they also drop out. So I think you have to figure out that balance of what questions to ask and how do you gauge whether somebody is only maximizing the offer without having any intention to join the company. But if you have anybody has any other questions or any ways, please reply in the chat section if you have any other ways in which you can do this. The question is, if somebody is just coming in for an offer without any intent to join a company, how do you identify those people? So a very good question from Saad Masood. He's saying, does type of sourcing affect the joining ratio? If you're doing a cold calling versus posting jobs and getting applications, will you see different kind of joining ratio? I definitely think, and I think other people can confirm, but I have seen that there's a difference. And of course, difference will be there because if you have inbound applications coming in, they are coming in because of your company, because of your something, or because of your differentiation that I've created at a time of either a general level differentiation in terms of employer brand, like Google, or it's other differentiation that is not general level, but it is at the application level when they're looking at multiple companies and your company stands out because you're talking about things that nobody else is talking about. Or maybe your JD is talking about something which is very, very high, high signal language for the people that you want to hire. I remember in one of the JDs, we had mentioned that, if you want to, if you're fed up of this kind of work, and we specifically know the pain point that the candidate had, then there's a very high resonance that the candidate who is applying based on your company or based on your job or based on your differentiation, the way you're presenting your information, they are more likely to convert because they are selecting you at the start of the process. while you're doing a cold calling, you are just one more call for them. And of course, you might have also heard, or you might have also experienced that their approach, in today's day, and again, if you look at the backdrop of how the whole talent landscape is shifting, we don't want to be called in general by people. So anybody who's cold calling is anyway an insurance agent, a bank giving loan, or something else, right? So you have to differentiate from that level, from that low trust that somebody else is calling me as spamming me. Now you're trying to show and tell them that you are from a good company, and you're cold calling, right? That is not a cold calling channel, is not associated with a very high quality kind of conversation. So you have to fight that bias. And of course, if you're doing cold calling and building a pipeline from there, then people are going to be asking you very pointed questions about where your company is based, what does the company do, how much salary you're offering. I have an offer of X, can you offer Y? And then only they're going forward. So of course, their whole discovery and the way the context in which the discovery happened was happening in the case of, was happening in a low quality environment. So especially in case of cold calling, I would definitely say, Sad, your joining ratio would be lower. And in case of high value conversation, employer brand driven applications and your job description driven applications will definitely give you better joining ratio. So Hemal asked one question about open house, that when you do open house and ask candidates to come to a group kind of a call, they might not come. How to deal with it? As I said, we tell them why it is so important for them. It's not for us, it's for them to discover the company before they join. And we think any candidate who's interested and serious about their career should make that investment. And just a 30-minute call. And they don't even have to start the video if they want. So if they're not taking that effort, then you can, we just let them go after reminding a few times. So Praveen was asking about like the stage, the pipeline that we had. Yes, it is automated on Cutshort. Praveen is going for talent TestCon as well. Great, Praveen, all the best. Have fun here. Somebody needs help with the interview structure for open roles. Archit is asking for it. So please look at his request again. Archit, you can write a message again if you are there. You need some help. So let's see if somebody can help you out. Okay, so we'll just stop here. I think there are a lot of questions here, but I think we might have to stop here. It's 5:41. Arohi, you can drop off if you want. And maybe I just answer 3 or 4 for the next 3 or 4 minutes. I'll answer more questions and then we'll wrap it up.
Sure, Nikunj. Thanks a lot for having me here.
And by the way, we got the poll result. How useful was the session for you? And good news is that 62% people found it to be very useful. 38% found it to be somewhat useful. 0% said not very useful. So we did okay.
That's
Congratulations. Thank you for your time and effort.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So Samir is asking what needs to be added in the overall flow as candidate experience. Someone who can be a hand holder. Let me just share that. Someone who can be a hand holder of candidates to every step level. Absolutely. Absolutely, Samir. So absolutely right. And this is the role of a recruiter. I think the perceived role of recruiter today in the candidate mind is that this is someone who will talk in the start, then this person will come to me later on, and this person is not from a tech team, so he really can't tell me too many things about the culture and all of that. The person will be making very generic kind of statements, and that's how the perception is, by the way. So don't get don't take it as an insult or something, but basically, don't get offended. Basically, what I'm saying is a recruiter's role in the entire process is that the recruiter is a guide who is who can understand every candidate, can understand what the company offers, can do a great matchmaking only if it exists, and can create a very high trust environment in the mind of both the hiring manager, interviewers, as well as the candidate. The recruiter's job is to serve both. A lot of people think recruiter's job is only to serve the company, but actually it is as much a job to serve the candidate, because if you are not focusing on what the candidate is really looking for, then of course your journey ratio might improve or it might be okay, but your success ratio will go down and they will churn. And again, you will be back on the road looking for a replacement. So, and this is where recruiters, I think, uh, need to improve their skills more. Understand how to do these things better. Learn a trick or two from the sales people. That how do they understand prospects? How do they understand psychology? And these are things that are going to be very important going forward. So, candidate experience, you are absolutely right. A handholder of candidates to every at every step, who can, after every interview, for example, a recruiter can check back with a candidate, asking them questions about what happened, how would you rate the entire experience, what if they rated anything less than 10, then you ask them what would make them rate 10. You note down those points, and in the next experience, to make sure that if it is something that your company can deliver on, you deliver on that. So how do you create an experience for both parties for the maximum success chances is what a recruiter role is going to be a very, very important role. So Libin is saying my suggestions to get a better opportunity ratio is to invest more time with a candidate to clearly explain the role, growth path, and company culture. Absolutely. Invest more time to understand them and then map it to your company and your offering and your role, that how exactly it can achieve. It can help them achieve what they're looking for. Okay, guys, so this is 5:45 p.m. Thank you so much for coming over today, and I hope this was useful. If you have any suggestions on the future topics, something that from this webinar, if you think something was not covered well enough, something else you want to be covered next time, please let us know. You will get an email from us. You also, and also we have a community of talent acquisition and recruiter and HR people. So if you want to learn from other people in the community as well, please reply to the email that you received today. And we also have this resource of 40 plus tactics to improve your learning ratio. So please contribute your tactic, and then we will share with you the sheet that we have, which will be having a growing list of tactics that you can use. But more than the tactics, what we need is the topic and the content and the understanding and psychology that we discussed today. So with that thought, I hope this was useful, and I wish you all the best. That if you implement some of the ideas in this webinar, please let us know. I'm also on LinkedIn, so please hit me up on LinkedIn if you can share whatever insights you have and experiences you have on this topic. And we would love to make sure that people read about it, people improve, and as a community we grow, and we solve this problem together. Thank you so much, and have a great evening. Bye.